is there going to be an election?
I hope not. I don't think an election would solve anything because the time is of the essence. We've got Brexit to deliver. We don't want to add any more unnecessary delay. There's been too much of that already. We need to focus on delivering Brexit so we can get on with delivering good government for the British people, and a general election would only delay that. The outcome would be uncertain. So none of the things that people tell us they want, which is Brexit delivered and some certainty for both themselves, businesses, none of those things would be helped with the general election.
I mean, the thing is, though, some people argue that actually the only way to deliver Brexit is to get a new parliament. I mean, you can look at what Theresa May herself said on Friday. She said, I fear that we are reaching the limits of this process in this House. I mean, that sounds like a pretty big hint there, doesn't it? That she's so frustrated that the MPs in this House aren't going to be able to come to any
decision. I mean, you can read a lot of things into that. My interpretation of what she meant from that, I've not discussed it with her directly, but my interpretation of what she meant from that is that the April 12th deadline is pretty much upon us. The House of Commons said it wanted to take control. It wanted to be the decision-making body. It wanted to come up with the future options. And so the indicative vote process was to enable the House to do that. And what the House spectacularly failed to do was come up with anything. So all the various options that were put before us were all voted down. I think what the Prime Minister was saying there is, look, this is time to focus, time to grow up, time to get real. We've got to deliver Brexit. There is a way of doing that that's signed off by the EU. It is deliverable. It does work. It's the withdrawal agreement. That's what we should focus on.
So are you preparing for a general election then?
We're not planning for a general election. The Conservative Party...
Are you preparing for them?
Well, I'll be completely straight with you. We've got a minority government in a turbulent time. So we, just in terms of sensible, pragmatic planning, but we are not preparing in that kind of sense that I think you mean for a general election. What the government, what the party, what MPs are focused on, for the most part, and should be focused on, is delivering Brexit. Because without that, all the other conversations, that's displacement activity, that's belly button gazing. We've got a job of work to do, and we really should be doing it.
Should Theresa May lead you into the next election?
Well, she said she doesn't intend to.
She said she won't lead into a 2022 election. She hasn't really been that specific. If there's a snap election, as you say, there's a minority government. It's quite a fragile situation.
So the Conservative leadership process takes a period of time, and again, that process introduces delay and uncertainty at exactly the point in time when we need neither. The Prime Minister has been consistent. She's been clear that her focus is on delivering Brexit.
But if there is a snap election, if it takes you by surprise, and like you say, we're being realistic about the landscape. Theresa May could lead you into that election, as what you're saying.
Well, I mean that is the inevitable possibility. But and I wrote about this in the Express today. The British people keep telling me. I was in my constituency on Saturday before I came back to London. A number of people coming up to me just saying, "Oh, James, please just get on with it." And I keep saying to them, "Look, we're trying. I promise you, we're trying." And there is a way of doing it, and it's there. It's on the table. And on the vote on Friday, an increasing number of MPs, Conservative MPs, who'd been opposed to the withdrawal agreement, said, "Look, you know what? I get it. This really is the only way to get us out the European Union."
So with that in mind, are you going to be bringing the vote back next week for another go? Fourth time lucky?
I'm not part of that decision-making process. Mine is a party position rather than a government position. But the simple truth of the matter is...
Do you think it should?
Well, and again, I made this point when I've spoken to people over the weekend. There are now a really limited range of options. April the 12th is a point at which, if we haven't agreed anything else, we leave without an agreement, without a deal. Or we sign off on an agreement, and that's the one that's in front of us, or we run the risk of Brexit not happening at all. And I think that would be an absolutely catastrophic failure. The collapsing confidence from the British electors, the undermining of democracy, I think would be a catastrophically bad move. So for me, I've always been willing to accept leaving without a deal. It's not a preferred option, even for me, and I'm a staunch Brexiteer. So for me, the answer is really, really simple. It's the withdrawal agreement.
Who would you blame? You're talking then about how you think it would be catastrophic if Brexit doesn't happen. Who would you blame? I mean, would you blame fellow Brexiters like yourself in the Conservative Party who felt unable to hold their noses and vote for the withdrawal agreement?
Well, many people who had that position have changed their position.
Not enough, though.
Not enough. I would say this, wouldn't I? But the people I am particularly frustrated with are Labour members of Parliament, because they said over and over again that their criticism of this was about the future relationship, the political declaration. They kept talking about they wanted a customs union. Emily Thornberry earlier on this morning said that she wanted a customs union. You can't even have those discussions. You can't even start those discussions until you formally sever the relationship with the EU. That is done through the withdrawal agreement. So voting down the mechanism...
You wouldn't need Labour MPs, though, if you had enough Conservatives to back the deal.
This is true. This is true. And the Conservatives who are opposing it, I believe, are opposing it for passionately held and honourable reasons, and they have been consistent. I disagree in their interpretation of this, but they have been consistent. The people who have been really inconsistent are members of the Labour Party who have said publicly they don't have a problem with the withdrawal agreement. Their concern is about the political declaration and the future agreement. And then when given the opportunity to vote just on the withdrawal agreement, they made up some hocus-pocus excuse for not doing so and have failed to deliver Brexit. Those Labour MPs, despite what they promised, failed to deliver Brexit. And I think they should be held accountable for that.